it feels like there's a lot of things what people are having transfer portal conversations around quarterback. Who's the next Cam Ward? Who's the next Cam Ward? And I think I've seen it multiple places that's like, well, a good thing to say about who the next Cam Ward would be is to pick the guy who came from the same school as Cam Ward and is going to a bigger program in the bottom part of the country and just assume that's that. And so everyone says John Mateer. We called him Bacon Mateer. He wore eye black. He played at Washington State last year. And it was just one of those things. It's just, I don't even know what to make of it. Cam Ward left Washington State, went to Miami, became the number 1 pick in the NFL draft. And Washington State literally was completely fine. They were completely fine. They would have been totally happy to have Cam Ward stay, but Cam Ward left and they said, we literally will not miss you because this guy is here. And now that guy is going to try to save Brent Venables' job at Oklahoma because the 5-star quarterback that Oklahoma said, we're going to play you and tell Dylan Gabriel to go to Oregon, flamed out so bad that now the head coach is on the hot seat in Jackson Arnold. So now they have to go get another watch. Anyway, just looking at the list of like on 3, the top ranked quarterbacks in the transfer portal. One's Carson Beck, Georgia, Miami. We'll only talk about that a million times. I wouldn't pick that as the number 1 thing if you gave me $1 million.
Yeah.
2 is Nico Iamaleava, Tennessee to UCLA. That's just not our thing. And like, good luck to all involved, but like, whatever.
I like the thought process of Nico will be better by going to a worse offense with worse players.
Yeah. But he's still tall. Yeah. Still tall.
He is tall.
And 3 is John Mateer on their list of like the highest ranked transfer portal quarterbacks. 4th is Fernando Mendoza. And I do think there's probably a line after that, but I think that Fernando Mendoza is the leader to be the most impactful transfer quarterback in college football in 2025. So when everyone says John Mateer, I think, as you said, Fernando Mendoza wasn't Aaron Rodgers at Cal, but I think this has a chance to be an incredibly important and high level quarterback for a team that's going to matter.
I think so too. I think he, I'd imagine a lot of people haven't watched him, right? Because he's at Cal. They play late at night.
But everyone liked the Cal tweets last year. So then
everyone liked the Cal tweets. Yeah.
And then they said, I love these tweets so much. Maybe I'll watch the team. And then they should have beaten Miami, right?
I think people were pretty checked in with that game, but they didn't spend. Okay. And also, I don't think a lot of people watch John Mateer either, to be fair, but Mateer is going to an SEC program, so he must be good. Mendoza feels like a little slept on. So and less so like in the aftermath of the 2025 NFL draft when everyone's like, this is the guy who's going to rise up draft boards. I'd like to see a study on like the early mock draft quarterback darlings and how they actually pan out. But when the time comes to get drafted, but there's a ton to like with Mendoza and the track record. Like we've talked about it a million times. The track record of an Indiana coaching staff with quarterbacks is remarkable. Different styles of quarterbacks, different offenses, different leagues. Their quarterbacks are always very good. And this is probably from like a raw tool standpoint, the best guy they've ever had. So yeah, I think he's going to explode this year, but we'll see, I guess.
Devin Dampier at Utah, chance to have a huge impact. Yes or no?
Yes. I am Utah. They're going to, I'm either going to be incredibly vindicated by what happens with them, or they're going to be the death of me. Cause I'm like all in on Utah.
Yeah. He's no Garrett Green, but Devin Dampier is pretty good.
Yeah. Yeah. He is.
Remember that? Remember when I was ready to have a parade through the streets of Morgantown?
Yes.
Because I thought West Virginia was going to win 11 games and take the nation by storm. And I had him in an offseason playoff bracket. And then everybody got fired. Remember that?
Mm-hmm. I do.
Mark Gronowski at Iowa, chance to have a huge impact as a transfer quarterback. Yes or no?
Yeah. Like the most productive by a mile of all the quarterbacks that have transferred into the North. It's just that he did it at the FCS level.
Yeah.
But did it, arguably as well as anybody at the FCS level. Like it's I think we were doing a show a couple of weeks ago and we talked about like all the guys that North Dakota State had that just sort of like stayed in North Dakota State and never tried to go up a level to see if it translated. this is kind of that.
Okay.
I don't know, like Gronowski's not regarded as like the same kind of NFL prospect, I guess, that like Trey Lance and Carson Wentz were, but as productive, if not more productive than those guys at that level. And now he's going to try to do it in the Big Ten.
So you just said Mark Gronowski is better than Carson Wentz. Is that what you just said?
I
Put that
would
out there.
Yeah. This cough drop right here is better than Carson Wentz. So
Preston Stone at Northwestern, chance to have a huge impact.
I think so. Yeah. Yeah. Like not, he's like way down in quarterback rankings. He's not talked about at all really as like a potential impact transfer anywhere that I've seen. I guess it's because it's Northwestern and that's why, but he was really good 2 years ago. So if he can stay healthy, I think he's got a chance to elevate Northwestern in a pretty significant way.
And it's hard. And I think we'll try to draw some conclusions positionally about how to go back about the portal. We had said previously we're going to do that because we've just been doing a lot of research on portal stuff. Hours upon hours, just smoking candy cigarette upon candy cigarette, looking at PFF stats, whatever. I'm curious at quarterback, like up transfer or sideways transfer quarterback, but Preston Stone is like he's like a weird in between of, I mean, it's a little bit like Carson Beck. That it's not to get a quarterback who never played at a bigger program and now you're going sideways because you could never break through. I think I would question that. Hey, we got somebody's backup. Maybe I'd rather take an up. I'd rather take a MAC guy or an FCS guy. But when you have a guy who played at a big program and succeeded, and then it got sideways, which again, to be fair, that's what Carson Beck in Georgia going to Miami is. You went a guy who people thought was going to be a first-round pick, and instead he transferred. A year ago, Preston Stone was a starting quarterback at SMU, a team that eventually made the college football playoff. And then he got bypassed by Kevin Jennings, who was really good. But the year before that, Preston Stone was good. And this is not, I don't know that Northwestern, honestly, although I was going to say, they could never get a quarterback like this. They have a list. You mean like the 5 Northwestern quarterbacks who were drafted the past 15 years? Clayton Thorson and Mike Kafka and a whole bunch of dudes that plenty of schools who haven't had a quarterback drafted since 1963 would kill for Northwestern's list of quarterbacks. So I was going to say, I don't know that Northwestern could just find a guy like Preston Stone, except they've done it. But they were early on this. Like Peyton Ramsey was at the beginning of this portal world for quarterbacks, and he came from Indiana and took Northwestern to the Big Ten championship game. So I think it could be important because I think Northwestern could go from a pretty non-competitive team last year to like 8 wins if Preston Stone's good, which would be for Northwestern a huge deal.
It would be a huge deal. My only thing I would say to push back on that is I don't believe Preston Stone is like the kind of quarterback who's going to dipsy do his way with a bad roster to 8 wins, right? He might need some stuff around him, and Northwestern obviously is not regarded for its offensive firepower. So and they've lost some offensive linemen too. So like he's going to be in a tough spot, but I think from a talent standpoint, he's probably the best quarterback they've had in, I don't know, 5 to 8 years.
Yeah. What if he can bing bang boom it though? Right? That
maybe
just make the right throws on time to the right people and just be competent and functional and keep the chains moving.
That'd be something different. Yeah, because that was like the guy they brought in, Mike Wright, last year, which is like you don't know where to throw the ball. So, and then and then they got rid of him. Yeah, so I don't think they'll have that issue with Preston Stone. It's just a matter of, honestly, the biggest thing is probably Preston Stone has been injured. Will they be able to keep him upright with potentially bad offensive line?
But again, we like the Zach Lujan offensive coordinator hire a lot last year, and then it just completely got sideways. If for Zach Lujan to go from Mike Wright, it just didn't work. That was like the last quarterback added in the portal a year ago. Northwestern was literally last on the list. And when Brendan Sullivan went to Iowa after spring ball and they said, okay, we have to get a portal quarterback, Mike Wright, no offense to him, was literally the last one left. Vanderbilt, Mississippi State. And so they took him, and then it didn't work. And then they were on to Jack Lausch, who was a great athlete and has talent, but was super young and was thrown into it. And they just were lost. And so I am very intrigued to see, I'm very intrigued to see Zach Lujan, offensive mind that a lot of people were excited about at one time, running an offense with a quarterback who just has been around the block.
Yeah.
So I'm super intrigued by what competence at quarterback could do for Northwestern.
smart experience gets you a long way at quarterback,
Mhm.
and I think and when you combine that with like a creative, smart OC, like that can get you some places and help you overcome some deficiencies, which we know Northwestern has.
So then there's a bunch of them where there's guys. So Mikey Keene, if he gets healthy, still in the mix at Michigan as the veteran with Bryce Underwood. He still has a chance to matter. Dylan
Mhm.
Lonergan, the Alabama transfer at Boston College. Grayson James started the last half of last season for Boston College, but Lonergan, I think, is in that battle. He could wind up being super interesting. Caden Salter is the veteran transfer at Colorado. Juju Lewis is the true freshman. We think you imagine it's Salter at least to start, so he's going to matter. Similar thing, Justin Martin, the UCLA transfer at Maryland. You expect it to be him, but Malik Washington, the true freshman. This is a situation, again, like credit to these teams. Maryland, Colorado, Michigan all did the same thing, which is they have true freshmen who were big-time recruits, and they added transfers on top of them to give yourself options. So I like this. So Maryland, Colorado, and Michigan are all going about it the right way. We don't know how it'll turn out, but there's transfers in that mix. And then the super interesting one, Ricky Collins, the transfer from LSU, again, talking about like, I don't know. I understand being excited about Ricky Collins, but hey, he was a backup behind great quarterbacks at LSU, but he's never really played. And he was a big time recruit, but he's never played for 2 years. Now he's going to come be the guy. And Fran Brown at Syracuse had said, he's our starter. And then Steve Angeli came along and Fran Brown said, psych. And now Steve Angeli is going to be the starter. And he meant, based on the roster at the moment, Ricky Collins was going to be the starter. Steve Angeli. I can't, again, remember. I like to give credit to people for saying things that I'm stealing from them, but then I often can't remember who it is that I'm supposed to give credit to. Somebody somewhere, whether it was an email or a text or somebody somewhere, said the name Joe Burrow in connection with Steve Angeli. And I said, I don't know about that.
Well, what's his name at ESPN did it?
But also, I thought maybe it was an emailer. Wasn't an askKOTN at gmail.com.
No, but do you
emailer?
remember last year after the title game, you and I were in the airport in Atlanta and just happened to be behind a Notre Dame fan, and he was like, Steve Angeli, man. Like he was he was pretty fired up about Steve. We were like, oh, it's gonna be CJ Carr. He's like, I don't know. Watch out for Steve Angeli.
Now, to be fair, that guy was drunk.
He was next day drunk though, so he had some of his faculties.
Well, that guy was drunk enough that we talked to him when we got on the plane. Yeah. And then we talked to him again when we got off the plane, and he was like, hey guys, I was pretty drunk when I talked to you the first time. Sorry about that. Now, that doesn't delegitimize his Steve Angeli thoughts.
Yeah.
But also Joe Burrow. So it was either the drunk guy on the plane or somebody on ESPN compared Steve Angeli to Joe Burrow.
Yeah, and frankly, what's the difference?
You're never going to get hired there. You're never going to get hired there if you say stuff like that, Bill. Okay, come on, man.
That's right.
Can you imagine big old teddy bear Landis just dropping hot takes on Get Real or whatever they call it in the morning? What's it called? Welcome back to Get Real. We're getting real every morning. Is that what it's called? Get Fresh? What's it called? Get Fresh.
Cold pizza.
Yeah. So there's a lot of really good quarterback things, but I was willing, when we did our list 2 months ago of the quarterback situations in the North, I think 24 to 28 we felt pretty good about. Syracuse was one of the 4 on our list of, I don't know. But right now, we would put them on the list of stuff you feel pretty good about because Steve Angeli, man, this is the guy led a drive that got Notre Dame back in the game in the college football playoff semifinal and reignited them, and then they went on to win the game. Like, he was a very competent. Was he the perfect backup quarterback for a blue blood trying to win the national championship?
Yeah, I think so.
And now it's his time to go do his thing. So how this could be, if we're back in a year and you're making this list, the all North transfer portal quarterback for 2025, we would say right now, Fernando Mendoza is a leader in the house. I think Steve Angeli could be that guy by the end of the year.
He could, because he's going to, assuming the offense looks similar, he's going to throw the ball a whole lot, right? So the stats could be difficult to ignore, provided Syracuse can re-up at receiver after losing some guys. So yeah, he can be there. And I would also too, even if his numbers like aren't as gaudy as Kyle McCord's were, I would give Steve Angeli a lot of bonus points if he's able to keep Syracuse on like sort of an upward trajectory, even if it's not quite as good as it was last year. So
yeah,
he could absolutely be on the list come the end of the year.
Really nice trajectory boost for Syracuse to be aggressive, get somebody. They got somebody in the winter portal. Kyle McCord's leaving. They have to get somebody. They don't really have somebody on the roster. Yeah. So they go get a 4-star recruit who didn't play at LSU. I like the swing. I don't know, but I like the swing. And then to try to imbue that guy with confidence. But as soon as the veteran at Notre Dame doesn't win the quarterback job in the spring, Fran Brown is ready to pounce, just like he was ready to pounce on Kyle McCord last year.